Let's chat now with Durwood Zaelke, founder and president of the Institute for Governance and Sustainable Development, and he's in Santa Barbara, California. So it's always a pleasure seeing you. Thank you for your time. We just heard from, I'm not too sure you're familiar with Jason Isaac. He represents an organization, the Texas Public Policy Foundation, that is of the opinion that everything we hear about the climate crisis is incorrect, false, exaggerated even. My first question to you is, Jason believes that we can sustain ourselves using fossil fuels. Do you agree?
I'm familiar with people like him, and I don't agree. They're deluding themselves, and they're deluding anyone who will listen to them by trying to show that fossil fuels will continue to be the dominant energy source when it's absolutely clear from the scientific evidence that fossil fuels will soon lead us to climate chaos and threaten the very civilization that fossil fuels helped build. They were perfectly good until we learned that they weren't. And this was in the 1960s. The fossil fuel companies themselves, if you go back through their records, as the Los Angeles Times has done, as Inside Climate News has done, as the Center for International Environmental Law has done, you will see the best scientist at Exxon, for example, saying, we know that our product is emitting carbon dioxide. We know that that carbon dioxide will lead to potentially catastrophic impacts. And we predict, turns out quite accurately, that we will hit the danger point when we reach about 400 parts per million of carbon dioxide concentration in the world. Now, this is in the 1960s, the 1970s, inside ExxonMobil, their own documents. You can listen to Amy Westerfeld's wonderful podcast on this called Drilled. So the evidence is overwhelmingly on the side that fossil fuels are threatening civilization.
Well, Mr.
Now,
Zaelke, Jason and his organizations have been circulating a video highlighting how much we rely on fossil fuels. They have a video in your home. Nearly everything you touch and use uses plastic, metal, uses fossil fuels in some way. How do you argue with someone who shows you that, yes, you might be interested in reducing carbon emissions, reducing global warming, but you are going to have to make such a change that will completely inconvenience you?
well, in fact, that's half of that is true in the sense that there are many products that are derived from the fossil fuel industry. That is correct. Can we shift? Yes, we can. We are shifting right now to clean energy. And if you look at the research from Mark Jacobson at Stanford, perhaps the most important advocate for 100% clean energy throughout the world, you'll see how quickly that can happen. Now, in the transition, which we need to manage very carefully, we will use some further fossil fuels. But let's start with the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Act, which is a proposed treaty. And this would say we have enough fossil fuels right now that we know that we can produce that will already cook the world. So let's stop exploring and proliferating further, including in the most delicate places like the Arctic and the Amazon and other places that we should not be drilling further to explore and produce fossil fuels. So you'll see this need now to manage a just transition. And that means for the fossil fuel industry to keep its social license to operate, they have to be leak proof starting with methane. So methane is a super climate pollutant, and it's the main component of natural gas. It also comes from coal mines and oil production. And so that has got to be their number one short-term strategy. Plug their methane leaks. Keep a social license to operate a little longer while we manage a just transition. That's not easy to do in the sense that we have to invest much more heavily in renewable energy, but it can be done. It can be done, and what we see right now is that almost all the new energy that we're getting comes from fossil fuels. The legacy that we have from the fossil fuels, all the new energy comes from renewables, excuse me. But the legacy of fossil fuels is what's dragging us down.
Of course, the challenge is convincing others of the same. Mr. Durwood, Zaelke of the Institute for Governance and Sustainable Development, thank you as usual.